and welcome to a special episode of Beyond the Trailer. I'm Grace Randolph, and joining me is Rick Roman Waugh, who is the writer-director of Snitch.
Hi, it's good to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you. So I have to say, I saw your movie yesterday, and it's a good thing it's PG-13, because I think a lot of parents are going to take their kids to see it to scare them straight.
It was a conscious choice not to make it rated R. I really, my last movie, Felon, that dealt with the prison world, was rated R. And after the fact, it was a movie that we wished a lot of juveniles could see. Mm-hmm. And so with Snitch, because at the foundation, even though this movie is set in the drug world, it's really about peer pressure. Mm-hmm. It's about peer pressure at the level of what happens to these youths, but it's also the peer pressure that happens in the judicial system, law enforcement, the art of coercion, how, in this case, how one lie just to get their own sentence reduced can create a whole web of lies. And It makes everybody coerce each other. And that comes from the top to bottom, from the U.S. Attorney's Office on the other side of the spectrum, all the way to a father who's trying to do nothing but just get his son out of harm's way.
Yeah, no, I agree, definitely. And I thought one of the things I felt was the most striking about the film is that you see all these crime movies, and it's always like a rise to power. Right. But I think you really focused on the little guy who, and you kind of made it clear that they don't move up, and in fact they're used and abused and sometimes killed. Yeah,
I hope the movie shows that everybody has somebody to answer to. And it goes from both sides of the spectrum. You have everybody's sandwiched in the middle. You have at one side, you have Susan Sarandon, who plays the U.S. Attorney, who has a mandate. She has a numbers game to play. She has to put arrest records together. She has political ambitions for her career, as a lot of U.S. attorneys do. And it's all about those numbers. That becomes about stats. It doesn't become about names anymore. But then you have the completely opposite end of the spectrum, who Benjamin Bratt plays, who's this guy, Juan Carlos, character named El Topo, who's a cartel lieutenant. And I found it really fascinating when I started my research how most people think that, we don't have to worry about the cartels in America. That's a Mexico thing. Boy, you're dead wrong. People don't realize that the cartels have lieutenants in every major city in our country. Who do you think runs the hubs for the cartels? The actual cartels themselves. So you have this other guy named Juan Carlos who has people to answer to as well. So he has his own agenda, and then you put the people that we have, our everyday people, Dwayne Johnson, and as well as a guy named John Bernthal who plays Daniel, two fathers from completely opposite side of the tracks who have the same exact agenda. Get my kids out of harm's way, better my family's future, and would move heaven and earth to protect our kids, which really is the thematic question of the movie. It's, we all talk about, I'm a father, I have twin 5-year-old twins. I'm a father of 5-year-old twins. And that adage we always ask, we always say as parents of, we would do everything to protect our kids. Well, this is what this movie questions. It questions about how far would you go down that rabbit hole? How far would you move heaven and earth to protect your own kids the way that these fathers do?
They go very far in the film, very far, like unbelievably far. You're like, as you said, it really is a web that grows out of control. Your movie actually ended up being very timely because of what happened to the Reddit founder, Aaron Swartz, who committed suicide, also for sentencing laws. He was facing a 35-year sentence for stealing documents from MIT. So what influenced you to make this movie? Because I mean, this happened like while you were in post-production, I assume. With Aaron.
I think when I did Felon was about that first-person point of view that you follow all the rules of society and you make that one mistake and you have to do prison time. What would you have to go through to survive prison? What would your family do if you were suddenly out of the equation and you had to look at your own kids behind glass and they had to look at daddy behind glass or mommy behind glass, and how it affected everybody? And then when I heard about this story, it struck me that, again, it was that second age-old question that we ask ourselves, which is, if our kids were in harm's way, how far would we go to protect them? Beyond that, you start looking at these mandatory minimum sentencing laws, and it becomes a numbers game. It becomes about ensnaring, these laws, first of all, were designed to ensnare high-level drug traffickers. The idea was, if we catch you with enough drugs of trafficking, then we're going to give you a mandatory sentence of 10 years in prison, 30 years in prison, life in prison. And the only way you can reduce your sentence, other than doing the full sentence, is to snitch on other drug traffickers. Well, suddenly, what if you don't know any other drug traffickers? You're going to lie. You're going to save your own butt. And that one lie, how it casts a web of lies. And that's kind of what the movie shows.
That's the catalyst for the film, this one lie that another kid tells.
So the pressure point of that, the pressure point of coercion, and when suddenly, you know, I mean, can you remember what you did last year? Think of if the next 10 years of your life were completely ostracized from what your life is now, that you were suddenly in a cement jungle with people that you don't know in a dangerous mode. That when you start putting that type of pressure point on people, it's amazing what they will do, what they're capable of. Which Dwayne and I talked about right from the get-go is that this movie will not be squeaky clean. This movie's not going to be safe. This movie's not going to play it where he's going to be the perfect good guy, you know, that's always going to be on the morally on the right side of morality. He's going to have to toe the line, and you know, and he's going to find himself coercing others, and then how do you save your own morality when nobody else cares about your morality? They only care about their own agendas, and it becomes about all those agendas, you know, being entangled in the same web.
Well, you know, I was reading the press notes for the film, and I saw that you really wanted Dwayne Johnson for this, not only because you thought he was a great fit, but it would give him a chance to show off his acting skills. You know, give him some more acting to do.
Yeah.
And as someone who comes from the stunt world, you've worked with Stallone, you've worked with Schwarzenegger. Why do you think it's so hard for Hollywood to take these guys who start in the stunt world seriously as actors?
Well, to back up a step, I think that to answer that question first, I think that people get branded. And they become proficient in what they're doing. Arnold Schwarzenegger, an amazing bodybuilder, world champion. And then suddenly it's like, well, he's only muscles. So then we're going to put him in as Conan. We're going to do these type of movies. Everybody's got their way of, you know, Hollywood and audience have their way of like branding people. And it really takes a special person to be able to break that mold. That's Dwayne Johnson. So as much as, yeah, this is a chance for him to flex his acting chops, I always knew he had it. He's a phenomenal actor. He's a phenomenal person. And the reason that people love him so much is because he's grounded his own life in authenticity. He is an authentic person. When you meet him, there's nothing fake about him. He is completely sincere. And I wanted that to come across for my hero, to be put in a world that I'm trying to create authenticity of, you know, to make it be a world of, that we loved movies like Traffic, you know, movies that when you went in that world, man, this is it. This is the way this is the real world. So when we started talking about casting the movie, and all the usual suspects' names came up. You would put in a movie like this, I was like, you know, boring. I've seen that before. I'll tell you what, why don't we just show how dangerous this world is? Why don't we take the most formidable guy on the planet, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and walk him into this movie and show you when it's real world rules, it won't matter how big you are, because when a bullet hits you in the head, you die just as fast as the guy that's 5'6".
Exactly. You have been a writer on every film that you've directed. How crucial would you say being a writer has been to developing your directing career?
Huge. I call it the war chest. You know, Dwayne and I talked about it. I mean, here's a guy that went from, you know, national champion in football, took that war chest of knowledge, went into wrestling, took that war chest of knowledge, and you keep obviously progressing yourself as a human being and as, you know, in your career. And I want to do the same thing. I had all of this background in production with stunts, you know, second unit directing, I directed commercials, but I really didn't have much narrative sense, you know, of what the narrative process was. And then suddenly becoming a writer for all those years and doing all these different movies, different writing projects before I started directing again, it gave me a sense of the narrative process to where then I had the whole war chest, because I could, you know, I could come into a piece of material and then put my stamp on it narratively, but also construct it in a way that I know production-wise I can make it completely organic and real.
So my last question for you is, we have some viewers on the show who want to work in entertainment, and they would love to be where you are. What's some like realistic advice you can give an aspiring director?
Perseverance. It's everything. It's not going to come easy. I don't care who you are, what your background is. It's about putting in the blood and sweat. It really is. It's about paying your dues. I think a lot of people make the cardinal mistake of trying to get from A to Z without, you know, skipping all the letters of the alphabet. It's really about about putting the work ethic in, sludging it out every day, and knowing your craft. Don't cut any corners. If you're going to tell a story, and you know, I lecture a lot of new young screenwriters and mentor them, and the first thing that they always ask about is, you know, what's the first thing in a screenplay? Know your world. If you're going to take me into a world, know it inside out. I don't care if it's complete fantasy. Research it to where then when you're writing it, it'll come through on the page, and then it'll translate onto production as well. It's just about knowing where you came from, knowing what you're about to take in, and doing the homework and doing all the due diligence, and then the rest will take care of itself. You
said you mentor people. Can they tweet you?
Absolutely.
So Rick's Twitter is right here. So tweet him your questions.
Absolutely.
And see Snitch.
Please.